Because
it
was a nice plot overall. It was simple, easy. It felt like I was just watching an extended episode of a G.I. Joe show, which made me think I would probably watch a G.I. Joe show if it came out on like Netflix or HBO Max.
Yes, I can agree with you 100% there. Because I thought it was a pretty enjoyable story. Mm-hmm. It went into the origins of the characters that are a part of this beloved franchise pretty well by developing them, getting us into their past, and explain the origins. Like, I know some people were, like, I seen another friend of mine tell me that Snake Eyes isn't supposed to talk because his throat was cut, but it's an origin story. You're not maybe he didn't get to that point where his throat was slit yet. So
is that what happened?
Well, originally what happened was Snake Eyes actually took a vow of silence. I can't remember specifically. I think it had something to do with like the death of his master. It was like, or something. He was traumatized so much that he actually took a vow of silence. And apparently, and I read this somewhere, the only other piece of media, aside from this Snake Eyes movie, the only other piece of media where Snake Eyes ever actually made any kind of like vocal noise was way back when the first G.I. Joe movie after he defeated Storm Shadow. He let out that quiet sigh of like, I don't know, like of a bittersweet defeat of not an enemy of a brother. Other than that, and other than this movie, that's like the only time he made any kind of vocal noise in any form of media, be it comic books, movies, or TV shows.
Okay, that explains it. Because I think it's in the Marvel comics. Yeah, it's the Marvel comics. My friend Tommy, I'm not sure how many of you guys watch him. We had a little conversation on Twitter about this. He said that Snake Eyes in the Marvel comics is mute because he had his throat slit, so he doesn't have that ability. But for me, it's an origin story, so maybe it didn't get to that point yet. It's actually working up to another film, which probably ain't gonna happen because it's unfortunately bombing, but that's not, you can't really fault it for that.
Well, we'll get into that in a little bit. Like, I have some reservations on it, I'll be honest.
Yeah, and even then when it comes to faithful stuff, it still felt like a G.I. Joe movie. And I know someone's probably going to want to beat the shit out of me and call me a pretentious like that, oh, you know shit about G.I. Joe because you only seen that old cartoon and movies in live action movies when you were a little kid. But the little that I do know, I think it does feel enough like G.I. Joe to pass off as a G.I. Joe movie while still having its own vision. I think something could be judged as its own thing. And I think this, from what I know about G.I. Joe, still is passable as a G.I. Joe movie while still being different. And even then, like I said, it's an origin story. And it does follow a bit of, though it's cliched, I don't mind that, honestly. Cliches never bother me. It did offer a lot of emotion around the characters while still having a fun, upbeat nature that I really enjoyed about the overall plot. And had some pretty interesting twists, too, that I honestly did not forget, and that I honestly did not think would happen. Like, when I was in the theater, it just felt surprising when they did occur, and I'm sure you two know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
There's a couple moments that made me like, okay, confused, but okay.
Yeah, the twist that occurred, they didn't feel forced, and they made sense. And it did a good job at giving Snake Eyes the motivation to do good and pretty much feel bad about his later mistakes, which we'll get into when we talk about the acting and characters.
So yeah, Galix, what do you think of it?
Well, for me, for me personally, it didn't feel like a G.I. Joe movie in the continuity of G.I. Joe because it wasn't about the Joes at all. Of course, you know, they were mentioned, and we had what's her name, Scarlet, show up. They were a good cameo, but to me, it did not feel like a G.I. Joe movie because it was from if it was a Snake Eyes movie. As you know, as it is a G.I. Joe Origins movie of Snake Eyes before he joined the Joes.
Yeah.
But I also feel like what with the characters that they had in the movie definitely is allowing to open up a potential line of future movies in the years to come.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Overall, I actually I'm open to a lot of like I'm more open to like different approaches to certain characters than most people that I've met or know. For example, the 2019 Hellboy movie. I was open to that one. You know, I actually relatively enjoyed it. Don't come knocking down my house, my door, killing me, saying it's like it's not Ron Perlman, it's not Hellboy. And it's like, well, that's not what it's meant to be. It's not meant to live up to that. Like Ron Perlman,
either.
Like of course, Ron Perlman's and Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy movies are the best out of all three of them, without a doubt. But I still genuinely enjoyed David Harbour as Hellboy. I enjoyed it was a relatively, interesting movie because I went in to watch it knowing it wasn't going to be anything like its predecessors. And, I can't, and then when I went and watched Snake Eyes, I knew it wasn't going to be anything like the previous movies because I am fairly certain that they are not at all connected.
According to J.S. Penna, they are not tied together.
Yeah. Yeah, like they're nothing to do with them, nothing to do with previous incarnations. It stands on its own.
Which is perfectly fine. Like, even if something is completely
fine.
Like, even if this was not even let's say this was just a romance movie, not even a martial art film at all, and just followed the characters from G.I. Joe. If it was good, it should still be judged as its own thing, and should not be criticized based on the name alone.
Right. I don't know. It feels like the name is what's carrying part of this movie. Because if Snake Eyes and G.I. Joe wasn't attached to it, it'd feel like it would just be a regular martial arts movie that would have blended in with a couple others that I've seen in the background.
And like the only way you would know it was in any way related to G.I. Joe is because what other character do you know has the name of Snake Eyes and has that iconic look?
Yeah, and honestly, which I don't mind it being pretty much just like another martial arts movie, as I freaking love martial arts movies. I've been watching stuff like Kung Fu Hustle, Bruce Lee movies, and a lot of stuff recently. What's the other movie? Something Dragon?
The Last Dragon? Because I just saw that with Bruce Leroy. I just met him at a convention.
I saw that too, but there's this one movie with Zhang Zi that was famous. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I've watched that as well. That was another really good one. And I know many people don't think of this as a martial arts film, but it is. Godzilla Final Wars. It's a kaiju / martial arts film.
I mean, Godzilla's doing some kung fu moves in there.
You cannot say Godzilla doesn't know martial arts.
Yeah, plus you have
Clearly, he knows martial arts. Clearly, he trained with the master Bruce Lee.
Godzilla used to box. He had like the whole foot shuffle going. He knows how to fight.
Plus, you also had other people, and plus you also had the battle between the aliens, mutants, and humans, which was definitely very martial arts driven. Plus, the fights were very inspired by Matrix.
But that's a review for another day.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna be reviewing that for my Toho Kaiju Marathon series, which, for those watching, I am going to be uploading more consistently soon. My next video is on its way this coming Saturday.
Yeah, as a martial arts movie, I absolutely loved it. Like Joey said, I am also a big martial arts fan. I love the choreographic fight sequence. Every fight scene left me on the edge of my seat, especially that the very first fight scene. That one right there is just my absolute favorite. And once we get more into depth of it, I'll talk more about it. And what else was I saying? And the thing that people were expecting from this film. Was they were expecting it to be as close to the original source as possible,
which was their mistake.
And yeah, it's not the worst thing, and that's like the thing with like movies based off comic books or video games or anything of other forms of media, is that you want to keep to the original source as much as possible, but it's not exactly a bad thing to add your own little modern originality twist to it.
Take the live action Attack on Titan movies, for example. Many people complain that, oh, they're too different, but interesting enough, Shinji Higuchi wanted to make an accurate film adaptation to the manga, but Hajime Isayama, which had big part, the person who did the Attack on Titan manga, Hajime Isayama, actually felt that he suggested, which he had big parts into the movie, that they make the differences of that movie, because pretty much he was saying that why make it a copy of his manga when the animated TV show is a thing? And he's right.
Yeah.
He really
the live action movies, they stand on their own.
Exactly, they're really good.
They but there's one thing that the live action and the show have in common.
What?
What the fuck endings?
Oh
yeah,
they get tired all the time. But even Tiny to Godzilla, like every rendition of Godzilla came out has different back spines going for them. And that's the director is saying, all right, this is my version of Godzilla. I'm going to design him a little bit differently. That's why every time we see him, he has all his spines either larger or sharper or shorter in every single movie.
And he also has, like different origins as well. Mm-hmm. But it still pertains to the original source of being a mutated aberration of nature. Always.
Exactly.
Like, or like anything to do with radiation and an absolute force of nature to remind humanity of our follies and whatnot. Like Godzilla has changed so much over the 60 plus years of his film career, but he has always remained the same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Be him a good for force or for evil, he was always provided that same message that he was originally created for. Be it in different ways, it was the same message.
Shit, even 98 has its similarities to Godzilla, as when you look at 98 as a animal reimagining of the monster, pretty much what they did, they went back to the basics of Godzilla's inspiration, being a Tyrannosaurus Rex, a Iguanodon, and replaced the crocodile with a lizard, and then they went from there while still carrying other aspects of Godzilla.
Granted, and 98 stands on its own as well. It's a good monster movie, but it's not the best Godzilla movie.
Yeah, it's
that's just the truth of it. But 98 has become a prominent figure in the Godzilla community to this day.
Exactly.
98's always felt kind of the weakest for me, just maybe because I haven't seen it as much as the others. But it's a fun movie, and I'll give it to that. I love how we're just going to keep spiraling into this, back into Godzilla somewhere. I
agree with you 100%.
But my original point is that it's good to keep to the original source while having your own original twist to it, but you don't want to add too much of an original twist to it that just takes away the whole entire aspect of the character that you are doing that twist on, or series that you're doing that twist on.
I agree.
Because then it's just like a bumbling mess.
Exactly, because you want to still carry some aspects to still please the fans, but even if it goes completely away from the source material, it should be judged as its own thing.
Right.